Good morning, my outstanding friends. Today we're going to take a little journey into some mysteries. And this is a TED Talk. And they're talking about 3 mysteries of the universe and a new force that might explain them. Well, I haven't watched this yet, but I am about to, and we're going to watch this together. This is the Fair Use Act, where I get to comment on other people's discoveries and explanations of things and make my own explanation about their explanations. And this is just scientific discovery, research. It's got nothing to do with anything else. I'm not stealing anybody's work. It's called the Fair Use Act. And even though this may even be copyrighted, it doesn't matter, because I can express my opinions of their opinions. That's what the Fair Use Act is all about. So let's get started. We're just going to go through this TED Talk. And again, I haven't watched it yet, but they're talking about forces, and I am as well. I talk about them all the time, because electron flood theory, dipoles, it solves virtually everything in physics. And if they're talking about forces, so am I. Okay, this is going to be about the muon research, and I think I can show that I have something to add. Now, here's what he's talking about, and here's what they're asking for, and they're trying to figure out. And this is Alex Kaczewski, and he's from Fermilab.
But if that were the case, and we found no new particle or force, then we wouldn't be able to explain those big mysteries about our universe. What is dark energy? What is dark matter? And where did all the antimatter go? Whatever the outcome, the Muon G1S2 experiment will keep releasing results in the next few years that will continue to test our understanding of the fabric of reality. I, for one, am really excited about it, and I really hope you stay tuned with us to find out if we've definitively discovered a new particle or force for the first.
All right, I can guarantee you, I'm showing you a new particle and a force. And I would love to interact with Alex. And again, if anybody can help me to get in touch with them at Fermilab, I would appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, space cadets, buckle up. This is TED, 3 mysteries of the universe, a new force that might explain them. And this is Alex Kaczewski from TED Talk. Now, let's see what they have to say. And again, this is just me trying to make my comments on their statements. And I haven't seen it yet, so we're going to see it together and learn what they have to say. And I will interrupt it as I go along, because I'm sure I am going to have some questions or some disagreements, quite likely. So let's get started. All right, before we get into this, I just want you to know, at the very end of this, I'm going to give you a full resume of how I got to where I am now. But this goes back to 1970, and this was my final paper on dipoles and dipole molecular moments and the makeup of the molecules of the protons, which are all dipoles. And this was also my conclusions. There's only 2 types. They're dipole-dipole interactions, all right, which overthrows everything that they were trying to teach me. And I said the transfer of energy is from light to atomic vapor. All right, light is atomic vapor. That's all it is. It's the tiniest parts of the particles. That's light. It's atomic vapor. That's an atom. Well, atoms are big like this. And if you just boil that and it turned into little bits and pieces, these are the little bits and pieces it turns into light, which is atomic vapor. It's a little bitty piece of a bigger thing, just like water is water, and then water vapor is water that's been vaporized. It's been turned into molecular water or gaseous water, H2O in the air, basically, moisture. And that's what this is. When you talk about the 2 particles that exist, the only 2 particles that exist. So now we're going to look into TED Talk. But at the end of my story here, I'm going to show you how I did this, and when I was in the Army, and I did what I did for my life and everything. I go on, a lot of bragging going on there. But if it's true, it's true. And that's why I'm confident. They can't just tell me I can't talk. I did all this stuff my whole life. It's not like I'm just guessing. And then when I show you the stuff, it's basically undeniable. We started with light. We ended with the particles we ended with, which is the black and the white. And we separated them, and we can see the photons, the protons, and photons, neutrinos, all that stuff. So let's get started, and then at the very end, you can watch the whole thing, or forget that if you don't want to watch that part. But up until then, we're going to be talking about what TED Talk has to say and what I say, and we're going to be jumping back and forth from my series of pictures and so forth that describe what he's probably going to be talking about. If it's a force, I'm right in there. Okay, my friends, get ready. Here we go. This is a TED Talk, and this is a Roger response. So let's find out what they have to say at TED, and I will respond accordingly. Okay, so let's get started. Don't forget, these are the particles that we saw using light, which is much, much, much smaller than the particles they use at CERN, which are protons, which have 1,823 more particles, so they get to see a debris. So let's get into this, and I'm going to be explaining with these are our experiments. All right, these are the particles, and this is what CERN and Fermilab see. Exact same thing. See that black with a little glowy part around it? You see this black with the glowy part around it? That's it. That's it. And the other part is the one that can get bigger and smaller. This one, see, small, this one big. These never change. And that's exactly what Fermilab and CERN have found. These are the particles from the Fermilab article, which, as a matter of fact, I think I have it up here somewhere. Right here, these are the particles, Fermilab. Those are the particles, the same ones we found, only we actually found them using light. And here they are right there. Right, and then we ran that through a Venturi. And what happened was the black separated from the white and created their muon neutrino shower, sterile muons, and the electron showers from the electron neutrinos. So we had the muon neutrinos and the electron neutrinos, and they separated. In subnuclear physics, that is fission and fusion. So let's see what they have to say in TED Talks, and this is Roger's rebuttal, Roger's response. Okay, so this is TED Talk, and they're going to be talking about these mysteries of the universe.
Big mysteries about what the universe is made of and how we came to be here. So let me start by introducing you to three of the big mysteries about our universe. First, we know that the universe is expanding. So, all
right, that's just not true. We don't know the universe is expanding. And I'll show you why we don't know. Light is slowing down. It's not being pulled away, causing it to redshift. And light slows down in every manner of every which way, depending upon what kind of stuff is in front of it. And I'll explain to this. There's no question that the light can slow down.
Astrophysical evidence suggests that the universe started as a very dense, very hot Big Bang.
And this is why they're saying everything is just pulling away. But guess what? All of a sudden it's starting to accelerate, pull away. No, it's just getting slower and slower and slower as it comes to us, because we can see farther and farther away. It's just light is slowing down. Simple as that. So stick with me. This is going to get kind of long, and it's going to be a little bit involved, but we have to understand what the particles are that make up our universe. And then there's a lot more to this than that. All right, don't forget, I showed you the particles that we found right here. Whoops. Well, look at this. This is what space looks like. But these are the particles we found, the same ones that Fermilab found. Now, what does Fermilab say about space? They know these particles are all over in space because they are called the quantum foam. You see this? This is from the same article. Quantum foam. And what is he saying? Empty space isn't empty. All right? It is not empty. And what does it consist of if it's not empty? what is out there. It says the foam on the head of a root beer is complicated environment with bubbles appearing and snapping in and out of existence. Dizzying display of change. Snap, bap, 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 all continuously forever. That's why you got a little glow in the atmosphere. No. Well, in space. So empty space experiences empty space. Empty. Experiences similar activity with subatomic particles, which means light particles, first of all, protons, and even subatomic ones like pieces like this, getting whacked by light and turning on and off, winking. All right? Similar activity, subatomic particles winking, snap, 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 in and out of existence. These subatomic particles are real and have a measurable impact on our universe. It's just saturated. All light, it just saturates through the universe, and it's just from everywhere. And we can see this. It's not something that's hidden. And these are the particles that are the smallest particles of the list. And these are light. This is the kind of light that's coming at us from the sun. All right? And this is what's in space. Space is not empty, and this is the kind of fields that are out there. And the light coming through here it has to push through these fields. When it does, it's tink, 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 tink. And then eventually, light coming at us from very distant sources is not traveling the same speed. It's interacting with all that not empty space. And eventually it slows down, so we see it as redshifted. Now here's what redshift means. Light is a spinning particle, and it is, I can show this and I will. Now, when it spins down, it's spinning at this speed, and there's this much distance between each one of these. So let's say there's an inch between each one of these waves. They see it as a wave. It's actually a spinning particle. I can show you that, and I will. Now, what does redshift mean? It means they get wider, open, more open, open, open. Because if you look at the, right there, you see the redshift down here? That means the waves are much wider. You see the size of the waves? Hold on. You see this way down here? This is the only thing we can see in the visible spectrum, and that's the visible spectrum. So it's just this. But the waves are wider as you go down here, and it gets closer and closer and closer. And when you get up in the blue and the purple, they get really, really tight. They're like this. When you get down in the red, they're like this. Now, when you get more red, they shift. And that's what they do. They see the light is shifted. It's more red because it's slowed down. Not because the rest of everything's expanding. He just said everything. We know this for a fact. No, we don't. That's the problem. We don't know any of this for a fact. We're judging all of our assumptions on these laws of physics and so forth that never made any sense. They do not work. Coming through these fields, light is going to slow down. All of this stuff about distance, everything's expanding, and we're looking out 100 million, billion, zillion light years from here. No, you're not. That light has come down to us and is slowing down, and eventually that light will become the cosmic microwave background, which means it'll be so slow that it's just going to be floating around out there. And that's the stuff that winks on and off as it comes through space when we send out new particles from the sun. Tick, 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 tick. That's what's going on. Exactly what it said from Fermilab. All right, I was just talking about light speeding up and slowing down. This is blue laser, and it's coming through rocket ship fast. It's almost coming through in a straight line. And you can't even see it's two particles, which it is, just like the other part of the light, which I'll show you in a second. And it's spinning this way, drifting to the left. This is all one shot of the same particle. They can go fast. Now, you can see down here there's two particles, which they're all made out of two whites and two blacks. That's what photons are, and that's a blue photon. And you can see, obviously, it's slowing down, very compact up here. So this is really tight blue. And it's shifting towards the red. That's a redshift. And that's doing it because it was accelerated and it's coming through air, and air pushes back. And the red and the green do the same thing. They all push to shove because we are in an atmosphere that's trying to push back. Now, this is what light does. As I said, it spins. That's a spinning particle. And the particle is the thing that makes the wave, because the wave precedes the particle. I'll show you in a second. But everything spins. That's a drill bit. Ask any machinist. They'll say, yep, that's a drill bit. That's exactly what the drill bit looks like. Right through there. When it comes out the other side, the whites are so compact, they don't want to be there. So they set up these, what they call interference patterns. They're not interference patterns. They're repulsion patterns. This guy doesn't want next to be that one, and that one pushes the next one, and you get these dark stripes in between the bright. And then they form, you can see them in this line because of the design of the slit, but it's a venturi. So now that's the way light spins. That's a single slit, so that's not a double slit like flapping waves like this. That's just not correct. Single slit venturi. You see my theory, dipole flood, everything's a dipole. Anything that spins is a dipole. The moon is not a dipole. See, the moon doesn't, there's no big field surrounding the moon. And the reason is it's not spinning. But anything that spins is a dipole. Now, I think this might be Venus because of its really strong interaction and its sort of double polarity in the center. It's a little stranger than normal. And Venus spins backwards. But you can see there's no way in the world, it's impossible for light to continue at one speed forever through what they always says was a vacuum. It's not. It's obviously not. Not only is it not a vacuum, it has all these particles, which are light particles, everywhere. And there's also dust, and there's subatomic particles. Coming off the sun is not just perfect little bits and pieces. There's a chunk here, there's a chunk there, there's a couple of bits over here, there's over there. The universe, I'm sure, is very, very radioactive out there. I would assume these particles that are in space are not always nice, well-formed, stable particles because they're being irradiated from any luminous body. So I wouldn't see them as coming out in nice little molecules or atoms and everybody's happy. I would think they're looking for some reactivity out there. Yep, here it is right here. Cosmic radiation. The radiation from space. And it says, what is cosmic radiation? It consists of high energy charged particles. Those are these things like here, very high energy, because they're bits and pieces that desperately want to find stability, and they slam into other particles. And when they do, they rearrange these other particles that were attached to them, like your DNA, like your eyeballs and all that stuff, your skin. All right, and they come down through as these high energy charged particles, X-rays and gamma rays. They're way up here on these charged particle spectrum. They're very, very high energy. And they react with the Earth's atmosphere to produce secondary radiation, which reaches the Earth, which is the sunlight and ultraviolet light and all this other stuff. But when they first come in, they could be any size. They could be this, they could be that, they could be tiny, they could be big, they could be a basketball, they could be a marble, because they're being thrown off the sun in so many different arrangements of particles. All right, now I don't mean to be combative or, nasty about this, but I can't see how anybody could not understand that all of this interference is going to slow down the particles of light coming at us. It's just incomprehensible for me to think that they don't understand this. However, they look from our galaxy. Let's say this is our galaxy, the Milky Way. You can obviously see it spinning. All right, it's spinning. Now we're going to be somewhere on one of these arms of the Milky Way, and you can see the separation between energetic levels. That's exactly what dipole nature is. There'll be a congestion of matter and then a sparsity, and then a congestion and then a sparsity, just like I showed you with our interference patterns. Now, whatever we have to come through, we have to scrape through it. And our solar system is spinning as it's moving through here, scrubbing our sun. And that's what creates the illumination of the sun, is the scrub. And I will show you that scrub in a second. So as it's coming through here, it's rubbing and rubbing and rubbing. Now, if it comes through dense space, and we have to rip through something and cross a path of something or whatever happens to us is when we're crossing paths or when we're going into open space, whatever, it's going to change how our sun reacts to the oncoming particles. So this region right here would be interesting to know what would happen, because these particles are coming this way. These are coming this way. That's not a good situation. I wouldn't think. All right. Put on your thinking cap. This is a solar eclipse, which means the moon is overlaying the disk of the sun. So instead of being blinded by the light, all we're seeing is the radiation all the way around. So we can see what is the sun actually putting out. Because you can't see it. You can't see it. There's just too much light. It obscures everything. However, when you shadow something like this, then you can see it. Now, take your time. Don't get crazy. Take your time. All right, slow down. You with me? What we're going to do is examine every little bit of this light, because this tells us how that sun is spinning, how it's moving, and where it's going. I mean, I don't know exactly where it's going, but I can tell you the motion of it. And you see these three little red spots here? I'm going to focus in a little closer. Oh, you can see that now. Well, let me back it off of here. Excuse me. That's a pole. See it coming straight down? Coming straight up. And a pole means you got a straight pole running through the center of a spinning globe, which is the sun. All right, watch this carefully. This is our solar system. Remember, we were on one of the arms of the Milky Way. Here we are getting dragged through. The sun leads because it is the attractor. It pulls us along with it. And we spin around in a circle around the sun. And it appears these are almost like Higgs fields. Now, this is getting scraped off as it interacts with the oncoming particles. So it's being illuminated on one side, but not the other. This is exactly what is happening in space, and I can show you that actually happening. Okay, so here we are on an arm of the Milky Way, and we were spinning around and around and around, coming on one of these arms. And like I say, if we were coming across somebody else's path, that wouldn't be good. Or maybe we could come into a blank spot. That would probably be better. But we're spinning like this. And the closer we get to the core, the more energy there is. There's just pressure. It's like cranking a wrench and tightening this thing. The tighter you get, the more energy you get. And the more energy you get, that pushes all the darkest matter into the center. That's what creates black holes. Is when it crushes all those particles together, the black ones will separate from the white ones, and they'll congregate in the center. And that I can also show you because of these charged particles from outer space. During the experiment, we contacted the Earth guys who couldn't believe it either. They created that in space using charged particles in a vacuum chamber. All the dark went to the center. Same thing that happens if you crush this as a galaxy. Eventually there'd be so much dark matter in there, there'd be so much of a glow here, it would be called a black hole. All right, so let's get back to the sun, covered by the moon. You see that real red spot, red spot, red spot? You see those? And you see the field surrounding and the real intense little tight field around them, and then the real glow coming off them, a real heavy-duty blast coming off. These are a product of the scrub. So what I am taking from this is that the sun is moving in this direction and spinning this way. So this is the most impacted, is the central region, and then these are also the two most impacted, and they create their own little magnetic zones, and then they spew off tons of debris, and it could be little bits and pieces, it could be huge things, it could be mountains. I don't know how big they are, but this side is the slough off side. So it's coming, so it's going forward, scrubbing like crazy, and this side is sloughing off. So we don't have the red signatures over here. We have the slough. But there's still a ton of stuff coming off of here because it's completely irradiating, because it's got to plow through everything in front of it. It's just that this is plowing like crazy. And the other side is sloughing off, but it's still got to plow through. I hope you understand what I'm saying. This is spinning, and one side is less energetic than the other, exactly as a dipole is. All right, so don't forget, empty space is not empty. There's no way in a possible world that any of these particles could continue to come at us at the same speed for millions and billions of years. So what we're seeing, we have no idea what we're seeing, because every region has a different density. All right, which means every place we look, this we might be able to see a long ways because there's very little in front of us. But you try to look through there, what are you going to see? They say, well, we can look right through there. There's just nothing there. Of course there's stuff there. Of course there's field. There's resistance. Resistance means that there's fields that they have to push through. And I can show you light where it's trying to be resisted. Here's light coming through right here. Red laser light. All of these particles, these are air molecules, just air, regular air. This is right in the atmosphere. Rod Warren did this. He's just, I believe it was in his lab, in his shop. And there's the particles, all being pushed back at by these gases. And they say, oh, yeah, but space is a vacuum. No, absolutely not. It's not a vacuum. No way in the world is it a vacuum. You can see it's not a vacuum. So that we know. And even Fermilab, as I showed you, space is saturated with particles. Space is not empty. So all of this stuff is my evidence. Now let's get back to the TED Talk. So the first words out of his mouth is, well, right away we know the universe is expanding. I say no. Light is just slowing down. Gigantic miss. Okay, here we're back again with Alex now. It just occurred to me, he might have been making a joke that we all know it's expanding, but I think he's serious, because that is mainstream, says we're expanding, so everybody starts from that perspective. Let's see if that's what he's saying. Let's pay attention now. I showed you all my stuff. Here we go.
I introduce you to 3 of the big mysteries about our universe. First, we know that the universe is expanding. So astrophysical evidence suggests that the universe started as a very dense, very hot Big Bang and has since been expanding outwards from that point. However, as a complete shock in the late 90s, physicists discovered that the expansion of the universe isn't slowing down, as you might expect, it's actually accelerating.
Okay, right there I can tell you why it's accelerating. It's just getting slower and slower and slower and slower. It doesn't mean it's accelerating faster and pulling it apart. Here's what they're saying. It really is crazy. They're saying they see the universe pulling away. So this is the other side of the universe. Here we are looking out, and we're looking for light, and it's coming at us. And we're seeing it, instead of being in this specific region here. You see this? There's certain regions we know where light exists. And if it's supposed to be here, but it's down here, it means it's pushed down and shifted down. And it's because you don't have to know the very details about it, but they know when the light slows down. But they think it's being pulled away. They think it's being pulled away is why it's slowing down. Slowing down means a wider wave. Down here is the slowdown, see? The wider waves are the slowdown. And the more you bump into something, if you're coming here, you bump and 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 bump, bump, bump. But now they're saying it's speeding up. Well, the further away it is, the more stuff is hit in front of it. So it gets slower, obviously. So it's not, so far, not a word is correct. Let's go.
And we have absolutely no idea as to why this is. All that we know is that some unknown source or force of nature is stretching the universe out in every direction at an ever-increasing rate. And because we don't know what that source is, we've just called it dark energy.
All right, let me just explain to you something. That makes us the center of the universe. Everywhere you look, it's being pulled away. No, everywhere you look, it's just the light is getting slower as it comes to us. As simple as that. It's like, it's impossible for me to believe they don't understand that the universe is saturated with particles which are resistive to the flow of light. Very, very difficult for me to understand. And I show you dark energy. You want to see dark energy? Let's see dark energy again. Well, dark energy is just the push of the black particles. That's energy. The black particles themselves are dark matter. And I'm pretty sure I showed you this, but let me just be positive, because this is my theory of a proton. It's all this dark matter with all the light around it. And the only two particles that exist are these two. The electron neutrino and the muon neutrino. And in a ball, the black goes to the center and the white surrounds it. That's what actual protons and neutrons and everything is made of. And there's only stable quantities, which we call atoms. But they're only stable at certain quantities. Like a light particle is stable with just two dipoles. That's a photon. Only one dipole is an electron. That'll zip, zip, zip. It'll go anywhere and it'll move and it'll turn into heat and so forth. But two dipoles together is a stable light particle. It'll go through the air and bounce off something. So it's stable. The next zone of stability, you have to come all the way up to hydrogen. And hydrogen is about 1823 or 1824, 25, somewhere around there, of these dipoles. So that would be a hydrogen. All right, so that is the smallest stable quantity of these. And then you just keep adding more and 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 more, and you get just gigantic balls of these particles. Helium's like 7,000 of these. All right, hydrogen is 1,825 or so, somewhere around there. All right, but for every proton you add 1,823. Every neutron you add 1,824. So if this is just one proton, that's 1823. If this is 2 and 2, which it is, 2 protons, 2 neutrons, that's almost 8,000, 7,000 something of these particles. So until you understand dipole electron flood theory, they don't understand gravity, this light shifting. They don't understand light. They don't understand literally anything about the configuration of subatomic quantum gravity, none of that stuff. And I don't mean to be confrontational. I just mean that it's time to examine the things that I'm showing. Because the things that I'm showing, that's light. That's supposedly the smallest particles that exist, except for the neutrinos, which make them up. And I show the neutrinos, and here they are right here, actually developing. So here's that light accelerating. And there's the particle of light that was in that wave, which is a big field of energy pushing through everybody else's energy. So everybody gets excited. And that particle goes through the venturi, which is an accelerator. And at that point, it's an explosion. Absolute subatomic nuclear explosion. And that is a fact. And at that point, building up to the explosion, the particles gain energy. You see those particles? Let me turn this off. You see those particles? They're coming straight for that Venturi, right there. All right, there's all kinds of particles in the air here, but the only ones that are getting excited at this distance out are the ones that are stacking up, getting ready to hit the Venturi, which is way over here. And at that point, they just explode. So why are these different than these? Why is this, there's nothing here, why? And how did these just show up here? Why did that happen? Same thing down here, why did this show up down here? And there's nothing back here. The reason is the concussion of this into that is sending this shock wave backwards. And this photon is now a photon because it thinks it just hit a wall. You don't normally get the photons, I don't believe, until they actually bounce. And this one here is in the bounce phase too. Not quite so bouncy as that one. This one's more energetic than this one, but they're on that same avenue to head through the Venturi, which disassociates them from each other and creates a hell of a havoc. So we're seeing the neutrinos, then we're seeing the photons, because this thing just thinks it hit a wall. When a photon, these light packets of light, and you don't see them, you don't see them up here. They're up here, there's a whole batch of them up in here. And that's what is showing up in here. Because at this point, they're starting to concuss with the backwards field. Now, I can show you that very simply, but don't forget this particle, and look at what you're seeing here. This is the same particle as this, as that. I'm sure these are all the same particle, one shot, because it's so fast. Now, you see the top white particle leading, and then you see the bottom white particle leading. This one's flipped. And they do that. They charge up and flip, and they charge up and flip, and they charge up and flip. So you have upspin and you have downspin. And they spin according to gravity. So they're always spinning like this when it's light. Even if you shot it up this way, the particles will still spin as they go up this way. And I can show that with the green. You see these? Watch this with the green. You see? We're shooting it out up this way. They're still this way. They don't go this way. In other words, you follow me? They don't twist according to the way they're headed. They twist according to the polarity of the Earth. That's why they're so straight up and down. And the green is getting ready to flip here too. But green is much more powerful than the red, and that I can also prove because of this. This is going through the same Venturi at the same time. The red is just pushed out of the way because it just doesn't have the energy as the green. And the green reconcusses way out there. But it is the same, they're same particles. And there's little bits of green and red in between each other, and it's very interesting stuff. So that's the particles that I'm talking about. Now, so far I'm not seeing a whole lot that I'm impressed about. So let's go back to TED Talk. All right, so just to make you understand, I showed you the white can glow and get bigger and smaller, and the dark never changes size, and that's right from Fermilab. And these are the same particles with the black with the glowy edge and the white ones getting bigger and smaller, identical to what they found. This is from the Fermilab article I showed you before, I believe I showed you. And these are the particles. And this is just showing its energetic values, which you don't see easily in the black and white. But here you can easily see them. And you can see that in front, these are being glowing because it's pushing this way. That's why this one's charging up. And it's going to get bigger, and then it will flip, and that one will come in front and charge up. But right now, these are the particles they saw, the same ones we saw. Now, not only that, we were able to split them after we accelerated those particles. All right, and split them right at the Venturi, right here. And when they came out the other side, only the white could get through. The black couldn't get through, but it wanted to desperately be attached to the white. And here's where the reattachment starts. And they jump right in. You see them here, the blacks? So here, right here, the black and the white separated. All right, so we're going to go back to him talking about dark energy and dark matter. Dark energy is the black. Dark energy is really like gamma rays. It's just the black part. It's not. There's no white left. It's just the black parts. That's really dark energy. Dark matter is the black part attached to wherever it happens to be. And normally it's going to be attached to another white particle. So light contains the dark matter. That's what we've been looking for forever. But the problem is you never saw it before because it's in the center of the white particles. The white particles surround it just like this. So anytime you look at anything, all you ever see is the white. And that's the stuff that bounces back. So you never have seen the dark. The only reason we see it is because it's laying on top of the white. You see it right on top of the white. It's all over in here too. That black particles are everywhere. But the only place you can see them is when they're just jumping back into the white. And that's because they're obscuring the white from coming at us. The black particles, they don't absorb, they don't emit, they don't reflect. And they're one size fits all, and they don't push each other apart. You see right there? They don't mind laying right on top of each other. They will form right into a ball, just as I showed you in the space. Where'd it go? Right there. The black particles will just push right into the center, surrounded by the white. Nobody's ever understood this, and they still don't understand this. This was back in 2015. And this set off a little bit of a firestorm. I was a tiny little bit involved in this, but not where anybody was really communicating with me. I was just sort of discussing it online, and that didn't work out well. But I was showing all the Fermilab particles, and I was trying to communicate, and I did. I communicated with Fermilab, and I said, I found all your particles. You know, I don't think I was nasty. I was trying to be very nice at first. I said, I see you found these particles. We did too, but we used light, not big protons. And it didn't go well. And it hasn't for 8 years now. That was in 2015, or maybe even earlier than that. Because this article here goes back to, I think it's 2013. These are the particles. Yeah, 2013. And it was only within a year or two. It was when the cell phone came out, the Galaxy, Samsung Galaxy S3 came out with absolutely phenomenal CMOS. And we could see these light particles. I mean, this is the particles they saw. You see it, the fuzzy edge around the black, and this one here, he says, has no weight, no mass. Exactly, I agree. The extended particles have a fixed size. That's the black one, fixed. They have a fuzzy edge, yes. The point-like particles are zero size. They're just white little things, and he says they have a field, though. So the field has to be something surrounding it. Now, I think the field might be almost like a big soap bubble, a really rubbery soap bubble that gains energy, it gets banged into, but I don't know. I'm having a hard time figuring out how you could get all that energy out of electricity, which is right here. This is what you're getting your energy out of, right there, that white. It has no mass. Has no mass. That white will hit against something and just not even move it. It's just burn the thing up. And that's in a nuclear bomb blast. The white comes first and just vaporizes everything for like an instant or two. And then the black comes and smashes the whole house down. And that I can show you as well. Here it is right here. Here's the white coming through the Venturi with the black, but just a taste of black. And the black is pushing the white. And so now the white really has to interact. Before we had just nothing but white, remember? Here we've got black slapping through, but it's also being able to come through with it. And it's just collecting behind the white, forcing the white into all the particles in front, which anytime you force something into something else, it glows. And with light, it glows a lot. And there it is right there. And these are what they would call Whistler waves. They're very less energetic than these ones here. But they're a product of this interaction. And it's bumping out here in less, well, there's no reason for you to understand that. This is the key right there. That's where all your energy is. And that burns the house down, and then the black comes, knocks the house down. Okay, we're back to Alex again. I can't help it. There's so much that isn't understood. I have to get into enough detail so you do understand. And I hope you understand.
Now, what we do know about dark energy is that it makes up roughly 74% of the energy content of our universe. So straight off the bat, that's 74% of our universe that we know absolutely nothing about. Second, we know that 85% of all the matter in our universe is made up of something called dark matter. Now, this photo that you're looking at here is a picture from the Hubble Space Telescope, which shows a cluster of galaxies 4 billion light years away from the Earth. What's interesting here is the left and right parts of this photograph, because they're actually the same photo. But what you're looking at in the right photo is that it's had a blue filter applied to it to emphasize the light that's coming towards us from the distant universe. And what you can see is a dark ring indicating a clearly reduced amount of light coming towards us. Now, we believe that this ring is a halo of dark matter. Now, we have no idea what dark matter is, and we've never observed it in experiments here on Earth, but we know from several corroborating astrophysical observations that it has to be there.
I just showed dark matter, and it's part of light. Light is it's atomic vapor, and part of that atomic vapor is dark matter. So I showed it.
Importantly, another thing that we know about dark matter is it makes up another 21% of the energy content of our universe. So that, coupled with the dark energy problem...
You know, this is what it gets me. How do they know it makes up 21%? They don't even want to know what it is. They don't know what it is. But we know it makes up 21%.
Means that we only know what 5% of our universe is made of, and the rest is totally dark to us.
It's 100% you don't know, my friend.
The third problem concerns how we've come to exist at all. Now, fundamental particles of matter have their own antimatter particles, which are the same as their normal matter counterparts, except they have opposite positive or negative charge, just like the two ends of a normal everyday battery. Now, together, this charge is equal and balanced. The electron, for example, which we're a bit more familiar with and gives us electricity in our homes, is negatively charged, but it has an antimatter partner called the positron, which is positively charged. Now, to ensure this balance, matter and antimatter are always created and destroyed equally and in pairs. This is what all of our theories predict, and this is what we observe in all of our experiments. And so in the Big Bang, we would have expected that matter and antimatter would have been created in equal amounts, and so we would expect to see equal amounts of matter and antimatter in the universe today. However, nearly every structure of matter, every natural structure of matter in our universe, you, me, the Earth, the stars, are made almost entirely of normal matter, leaving a lot of antimatter missing from the balanced equation.
I hope you understand that when he's talking about matter and antimatter, he's talking about these particles right here, which are these particles right here, the black and the white. He's talking about matter and antimatter. Well, the black is the dark matter, and it is the matter. The white has no mass, has no weight to it. When you fill your car up with that white particle, when you take this, which is nothing more than white particles of electricity, that is electricity. That is the only part that you want to put in your battery, or to make it go in your house, or run your circuits, or whatever. That's the stuff you want, and has no weight whatsoever. When you put your car, let's say you have a 4,000 pound car, 4,000 pounds. and you have it completely empty with electricity, you can't drive it, and you charge it up, it will still weigh 4,000 pounds. No increase in whatsoever. There may be some tiny fractional increase in, in a gram or something like that, or smaller than that. But I think there has to be something. But it's immeasurable, they say. It's immeasurable. And I agree with that, because I watched the tests where they did it, and they put the car on the scales, and they measured it very precisely. There was a scale for every tire, and it was in the same temperature, in the same room, and all that business. And it was empty, and they filled it up, and then it weighed the same amount, exactly the same. Then they drove it around all day, and they weighed it again, and it weighed the same. Did not change. So, and I've done this myself with batteries, which are, devices that have big battery stacks, and I've charged the battery up, and same weight, no difference whatsoever. And I was in the very finely, calibrated scale. So I have to go with the fact that has no weight. And I can see that happen in the atomic bomb blast, where the house just burns up like this. It doesn't even smoke away. It just burns up like that. And then the whole house goes boom. And if you look up, I've shown it hundreds of times, so I'm not going to show it again, but it's that's what happens. And the black is the dark matter and the dark energy. It will push stuff over. The dark will push stuff over. I should show you, so I'm going to show you. The dark will push things over. The white, the glowy part, just infuses somehow. It's like, let me try to explain it when we see it happen, because I got a couple of ideas rolling in my mind, but there is no way to really account for it, to be honest with you. If these have no weight whatsoever, where is the energy coming from? How do you have energy? When you charge up your car, no energy whatsoever, no weight whatsoever change. You put gasoline in your engine, in your gasoline car, you had 60 pounds, 60 pounds. When you fill up, that's like, I think, somewhere around there. I think it's 6 pounds per gallon. So 10 gallons would be 60 pounds. All right, so far this is 100% mainstream, and I am not on board with that. So let's see what he has to say now.
Structure of matter in our universe, you, me, the Earth, the stars, are made almost entirely of normal matter, leaving a lot of antimatter missing from the balanced equation. For all you Marvel and Avengers fans out there, it's a bit like someone's just snapped their fingers and half of all the natural stuff in the universe has disappeared. There literally should be another universe's worth of stuff all around us, but somehow it's not there. And one of the greatest challenges in particle physics today is to figure out what happened to all the antimatter and why we see an asymmetry between matter and antimatter at all. So those are three of the big mysteries about our universe, and that's a lot of what we don't know. Now what this means is our current understanding of the universe up until this point can't tell us why the universe is the way it is, or what 95% of it is made of. But importantly, each of these mysteries, what is dark energy, what is dark matter, and the matter-antimatter asymmetry in the universe, could all be solved by finding a new particle or a new force of nature. So now, let me introduce you to our current understanding of the universe. This is it. The standard model of particle physics, the mathematical equation, which I'm sure you're all very used to, which describes how our universe works. You can think of it as the recipe for how all the particles and forces in the universe interact and result in the structures of matter that we see around us. Now this equation represents a huge level of achievement over the past 100 years, and in its full form it's much longer, but simplified like this you see a very elegant, I think elegant, representation of the structure of matter. And then if that equation is the recipe, then these are the ingredients. Just 17 ingredients, 17 fundamental particles, where fundamental here means they're not known to have a substructure, they're not known to be composed of any smaller particles. And together with the equation on the previous slide, they make up the standard model of particle physics. And it is our best, most tested and globally accepted theory of all the known particles and forces in the universe.
All right, that's the standard model doesn't work whatsoever. I've shown this very clearly. And the dipole electron flood theory works flawlessly for every single situation, including gravity, including quantum gravity, including the speed of light, the slowing of the universe, the cosmic microwave background radiation, isotopes. Well, they can't explain isotopes with this standard particle theory. It just doesn't work. So anyway, again, I don't want to be confrontational, but if he's just repeating what they're saying, well, this is it's just indoctrination. So here goes. Unless I have the ability to demonstrate my experimental evidence, not just theories. And that's all they have really at this point is theories. So here goes.
And it's given rise to much of what we take granted in the modern world, today. So a good example would be our ability now to harness the energy from the sun, where our ability to use solar power and our moves towards nuclear fusion couldn't be possible without understanding the particles and forces of the standard model.
I agree, but the standard model doesn't explain that. And I did create fusion and fission and fusion, and here it is right here. These particles were together. They were fused together. Well, guess what? When we put them through the Venturi, they came apart, which is fission. Right there, the black separated from the white squirted through here, and then the black jumped back in, which means fusion. Fission is here, and the white is all by itself in showers, and then the fusion comes back here when they fuse back together. And when that happens, they create the Higgs fields. They have it just the opposite. They think the Higgs fields are created by decaying products. They have it backwards. Let me just put it that way. I'm not going to try to explain what they're saying. But these are Higgs fields. When that white slams back into the black particles, you end up with Higgs fields. And we can create them all day long. And it's because the white now is fusing back into the black. You can see some of the black kicking back in here, trying to jump back into the white. And then when they really hit and they start to just splay into all of the white here. Now, there's a couple here that are really interesting. This one is the key. Watch this one here. All by itself, it takes off. And here's what I can see right here, is it hits this edge of the particle here, this field. Now, can you see that? I think you can. Now, let's look at it real careful. I'm going to home way in on there, because you got to remember we're working with a white particle and a black particle. Now, it comes straight up through here, and right there you see a black, and then you see a white, and you see a black, and then you see the white, and you see a black, and a white, and a black. You see the bip, 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 and then it just starts to turn and create a field. I think they're all doing basically the same sort of thing. They're getting hit and they just start spinning. I can't explain that. But I'm going to tell you what. If you look over here, same thing over here. You see the white and the black. They see the black digging into the white. All right, and they're trying to create their own little fields. And they do. They create zillions of them. And those are what they call the Higgs fields. And for CERN, if they get 50 of them or 100 of them or something like that every time they do a collision, which costs them I don't know how much, they're happy. We can do this all day long. And I mean, I'm talking, you want to see, let me just show you something. All right, so what are we seeing here? We're looking into the Venturi. All right, and here's all those little white spritzes coming out. And they're interacting with these fields and creating these spinning disks. Now again, there's another one straight up. See it? Snap, and hit right into there. And it looks to me like they're hitting there and spinning. Now this was the real interesting one in this shot. Well, there's a couple interesting things. That particle right there, I believe, is truly antimatter. All right, all of this other stuff, the black and white, that's just normal stuff. That's normal stuff. Muons, electron, neutrinos, that makes everything. That's all there is the muon, electron, neutrino. Normal matter. That, to me, is a backwards spinner. And by that I mean these are spinning, and they look to me like they're sort of throwing fields outwards. This one looks like it's pulling its field inwards. And I believe that's what happened, because I believe I see this colliding with another field in another shot. And again, this was done by Rod Warrens. Exceptional amount of time he put into this. Now, here's the other thing. We can see these little spritzes coming out at all different. They're trying to find a black particle to interact with to become a stable particle. Now, you see the purplish looking one here and the orangish looking one here? They're all supposed to be coming out red. So this one here is crushed. You can see it's crushed. It's not a big round disc like that. And this one here just seems to be a little fluffier out. So this one has a reduced amount of energy. This one has an increased amount, but it's increased because it's crushed. Now, if it was spinning faster, it would be increased because it was tighter. And the red is kind of loose. But that was the one that I'm going to show you about, because that, I think, is truly antimatter. Let's take a look at it. It took me 3.5 years or more to try to understand that particle. All right, pay attention to this now, because I think this indicates a spin. You see all the little bumps? Bump, 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 and the big disc out in the front? I believe this is the concussion zone, and the particle is here, and somehow it influences into the center. I don't know why, but the less energy it has, the farther apart the bumps are. You see the orange? Orange is less energetic than red. And then the blue and the green are more energetic than the red. So you might not even be able to see them. But here you can see them quite clearly. There's bumps in there. So I say these things are spinning. That's the only thing I can take from it, which would indicate they'd be a nice flat plate, which they are. You see how flat these things are coming out? They're not balls, they're flat plates. So I think it's a spinning particle creating these magnetic bump signatures. All right, settle your mind. Settle your mind. Look at what you're seeing. Now, focus in on the fact that this is very glowy, which means it's interacting more strongly than the rest of it, which means it's coming this way, smashing into whatever's in front of it, creating this glow. Now, if you see that little spot and this spot over here and that spot and that spot and one over here and one over, those are the little black particles or fields or something. I can't really put my finger on what's happening here. I got to be honest with you. But I do believe that the main particle is out here. And it's being banged against and creating these inward vibrational waves, possibly. I really don't know. I have no idea. But I can tell you what. I believe I can almost be certain of this, that these are spinning in this direction. All right, they're spinning in this direction, which means this one also is spinning in this direction because it's a normal wave. This is the particle that was the one that came through, and I'm almost 100% sure, but I am not 100% sure. But I believe this was the particle that came through spinning backwards, that white particle. If you recall, let me just be sure we don't lose each other. That's that white particle. And at this point, it's all by itself. But eventually, it whacked into one of these. And this is what we were just looking at a second ago. Here is the interaction of that white particle coming, and it's going to hit right into this white particle. I mean, this field. All right, so this field that's just doing what it's supposed to do. It's spinning. Actually, they spin this way. All right, I don't know what I said before, but if I said the other way, cancel that previous bulletin. They spin this direction. I guess that's the right-hand rule, because that's the spinning in the right-hand rule. So they're spinning this direction. Now, this one isn't. This one's spinning backwards. It's going that direction. And look what happened. Think about this carefully now. All right, I should let you figure this out by yourself. It took me 3.5 years to try to understand what could cause that. What could possibly cause that? Let me home right in on that so that you don't miss a little thing. All right, here's the whole interaction. These are spinning this direction, the normal ones. All right, this is coming in with a backward spin, and it looks like it was going to create a backward spinning particle. But when it interacted with this one, its spinning back particle was stripped away, because this one is spinning this direction. This one's spinning this direction. So its outside particle, which is this one, collides with this field, and right there, exactly right at that real glowy spot, the two particles spin against each other. And this one wins. And it spun this one off, and this one's now going to try to create its own cone in the normal right-hand spin. I think. I don't know. At this point, I've lost. But I can tell you what. If you look at it, it was right here, and then it's just dissolved. Roger. It's gone. Okay, my friends, a little interruption there, but I had a whole bunch of them, so I'm probably going to be a lot out of sequences here. But I believe I showed you this particle coming through, which is, to me, a reverse spinner, and peeled this piece off, which to me has to be still a photon, but now trying to rearrange itself into some other form of a disk. I don't know. That's a head scratcher. But all the rest I think I've been pretty clear about so far. And there's things nobody can explain this. You try to explain to me this stuff around here. What's going on up there? Anytime I see glow, that means there's energy. All right, and how could this be on top of the moon when we're looking at the moon? Is it in front of the moon? I don't know. Is it on the moon? I don't know. Where did this come from? I don't know. But I can tell you what, there is a ton of magnetic fields, and they're looking for these. They call them quantum gravity and quantum waves. I think I had something from CERN. Here it is right here. Or from wherever it is, from, I'm not sure, gravity waves they call them. But you see the black particle, you see the white particle? It's the same stuff we have. Same stuff I'm showing you, only this is just a little artist's rendition showing a black particle with tight fields and little looser fields out there. Same thing there, only it's a white particle. And I show those, but they're real particles. Like this one here, look at this. And these are all the gravity fields around it. These are very, very symmetrical. They're not like what they just showed you in their little doodle that they had there. Now, in all of these things, just about everything is a dipole. Everything's a dipole. If it spins, it creates a dipole. And when they interact with each other's fields, they become all kinds of crazy looks to them. Look at this thing. I don't know what the hell is going on there. The only thing I can think of here is just some kind of a planet somewhere way out there, and these are the moons around it or something. causing the magnetic field to be very, very strange. I don't know, you could go for hours and hours looking at this stuff. Look at these fields here. These are interacting, exchanging field lines. The same, I don't know, very, very strange stuff. And the blue shift on the moon indicates to me that the moon is moving in this direction. Because the red shift would mean that it would shift to the red. Moving in this direction means it was going to shift to the blue. Moving away from here would mean red shifting. But moving into the light means blue shifting. So the moon has to be going this way. And I showed you, I'm sure I did, the GIF from gifs.com, I think it is, forgifs.com. And these are our interacting planetary bodies in the solar system. All right, I know I'm not giving Alex much airtime here, but I'm trying to explain the things I'm hearing against the things I can show.
Now, whilst the standard model has been so successful at testing the phenomena that we can test here on Earth, it cannot accommodate and has no explanation for those big mysteries about our universe. And so it's at this point that I'd like to introduce you to a particular particle and the hero of our story, the muon. Now, muons may seem unfamiliar to you all, but actually they're around us all the time. Cosmic rays that hit the Earth's atmosphere result in showers of muons that constantly bombard the Earth. You may be surprised to learn, for example, that there are, on average, 30 muons travelling through each and every one of you every second. Now,
I disagree with that. The muons don't travel through you. They bang into you. They don't travel through you. You ever see one of those things that has a bunch of balls and they're all hanging on the string, and you let one go to bang and it hits it, and one over here moves? Some of that happens, but usually it bangs and it shifts and then it just slows down. But it's just moving another particle as it comes through. It's not just spinning through you with no effect whatsoever. Cosmic rays are literally X-rays and gamma rays, basically. So we're not being irradiated like he's saying, I don't believe.
Muons can be thought of quite simply as the heavy cousin of the electron, and they sit next to the electron in this picture. And they're about 200 times heavier. But importantly, they're an ideal tool for physicists to use to search and look for new particles and forces to explain those big mysteries.
I just want you to know that he's talking about the most elementary particles, and they claim the most elementary particle there is light. Well, light is actually made up of a couple of these dipoles.
And so why is that? Well, let's assume for a second that we can represent the muon by this gyroscope. When you spin a gyroscope, it wobbles around its axis just like that. And muons have an identical behavior when you place them in a magnetic field. They spin and they wobble. Now, whilst they're doing this, the muon will come into contact with any and all other particles in the universe, standard model or otherwise. And in fact, it's the interaction of the muon with those other particles that defines how fast it wobbles. In essence, the more different particles that bounce off the muon whilst it's wobbling, the faster it will wobble. And so then, this is what...
All right, when he says wobble, it's actually spinning. All right, it's when they come through, well, let me show you so that we don't get lost one more time. The wobble is the spin. So let's take a look at the green particle, because it's just getting ready to spin. Don't forget, they're on the axis of the Earth. Even though it's going this direction, it's still on the axis of the Earth. And it's getting charged up. And this, you can see here how it's glowing there. I don't know if you can see the glow of that particular spot. You see, it's more glowy in the front bottom than it is at the top because it's behind the black particle. Well, this one here will get so charged up, it'll flip to the back. So that's the wobble, they call it, the muon wobble. It's just a spin to the back, and the white particle comes in the front and starts to absorb. So it's either upspin or downspin. They're both downspin right now. But in a second, that one's going to kick to the back, and then there will be upspin, because it's the leading edge is what they determine is to what they call the spin. See, they're both downspin right now, but that one's going to flip to the back, and then it'll be upspin. And the red, I think I showed you both of them happening in the same boom and boom. All right, so the white is in the back here, the white is in the front up here. And I can see them, I can show you them getting fluffy and less fluffy. Here it is right here. And the reason that's getting fluffy is because it's getting excited by those little particles right there. And that one's just getting dim, and eventually it will take over and go to the front, and that one will go to the back. It's just, they spin like this. All right, so they're talking about neutrinos, the tiniest particles, the muon, which is the black one, and the white one is the electron neutrino. All right, so these are diuracs. Now, when they are fully formed and it's completely white and completely black, it's a diurac neutrino. When it's a majorna, it's like they're in the neutrino phase, but they're not fully formed. As I showed you, I know at least several times, where we come up with the neutrinos and then into the fully formed photons and then the explosion. Now, what haven't I shown you here? Hold on one second. Well, this is what the neutrinos look like. This is what our neutrinos look like. And when they're put together, they make a photon. And when they divide apart, they make muons and sterile muons. Right here, you see this? This is what a muon is. Muon neutrino and electron neutrino. That's the black and that's the white. The black and the white. When you hit them into heavy water, the muon goes on its own way. It becomes what they call a sterile muon, because it's normally attached. And they're coming in extremely high energy, and they're slamming into this water, creating Cherenkov radiation. All right? The muon goes on its way, separates, and the white showers come through and create these shower events. So the electron neutrino, the white part, turns into a shower. Precisely what we did. When they hit, the black muon didn't come through. The white went into the shower mode. We can actually direct these. That's what the Holy Grail is to be able to direct these electron showers into something that can collect that energy. This is what's bothering me. We should be able to get free energy from this. I'm almost sure of that. Because we can squirt this stuff all day long. We just send them right down the line. And there's more of these coming down here. And if we had more accelerators, I think we could have a whole wall of acceleration coming in with lasers, forcing themselves to crush through these venturis and only let the white through. And if that's the case, when you see enormous illumination, that means you have an increase in energy. From here to here, the energy increase is exponential. And that's what they're doing right now at the CERN, the high luminosity colliders. All right, they're upgrading CERN, and by 2029, they will increase the luminosity by a factor of 10. All right, so I guess that's good. So anyway, they're going to be focusing and doing some other stuff, but this is all about high luminosity. High luminosity means high energy. Okay, this was an atomic bomb test they did long ago. Now they got their truck out here and they got all kind of equipment lined up here to try to sense these reactions. Now what I want you to see, and I'm going to lead you through it, is that when the white goes off, it's just everything is blindingly white. And then just everything smokes up, no movement whatsoever. Now they're going to take the truck out of here. They've got a camera facing away from the radiation so it doesn't affect the film or anything, and they can watch what's going on. And of course it's in a hardened enclosure. Now, here's what's going to happen. I've got to turn the speed down very slow, but we'll watch the reaction. It's first, well, I'll lead you through it. Hold on. All right, so here we go. The first thing you're going to see is a blinding white light. All right, here we go. All right, I just stopped it. What do we see? Just nothing but just blistering whiteness. Now, this is the initial blast of the white particles that surround the dark matter. So the white particles are coming first. No movement whatsoever. Look, they have no mass. Look, they burn everything. It's just burning it. It's just smoking it. You see this? I just stopped it again. Everything here that could burn is going to burn. The roof will just smolder. The steel doesn't burn because it can't burn. It's not combustible. The wires, the poles, they just smoke. They're not moving this way. Do you understand what I'm saying? Somehow that white particle just fuses into other white particles when it interacts with them. The first fusing was when it hit well, let's go back and look at it. The first fusing was when it hit the atmosphere. All right, because as soon as it went off, boom, boom, watch. I stopped it. Well, I didn't stop it, but here it goes, and it's just going to fume everything up and destruct and fume. Look, it's all gone. You see this? Literally everything that was combustible is gone. The roof is now just smoldering what's basically left of it. And it's just smoldering. Now the black particles come. So we know that we had the white particles go first, and then the black follows it and just takes everything down. The black is the only thing that has weight. And I agree with that 100%. And you fill your car up with the white stuff that was the white thing that hit this thing first, and your car doesn't weigh anything extra, but it runs all around the town. Explain that one to me. All right, this is the high luminosity Large Hadron Collider. They're trying to raise the luminosity, which means that's raising the energy. And here's what it says: the high luminosity LHC upgrade being applicable to almost all major LHC experiments, that's Large Hadron Collider, has a wide range of physics goals, increasing the number of collisions to 140 each time the proton particle beams meet at the center of the Atlas and CERN CMS detectors, from the current number of only 30. They were getting 30 head-on hits, so they run all this stuff backwards around and they hit head-on. And they were getting 30 hits before. Now they're going to get 140 every time they turn this beam on. And I don't know how much it costs to turn it on, but I'm sure it's not cheap. Now, I showed you we get 100%. And when you talk about luminosity, that is more luminosity there than you can possibly imagine. It's absolutely incredible. That amount of luminosity, you see the glow around that? Here's where we started. Let's take it from the beginning. We started right there with that much energy. Not even hardly that. You wouldn't even see that if it wasn't getting ready to get sucked forward. So now it gets pulled, and now it enters the zone of combustion. It really is an explosion. And right there, the blowback is so unbelievable that all of these waves you never could see. You would never see them. They're there, but now they're being pushed back so violently that they're glowing. This is a subatomic nuclear explosion. Fission and then fusion. That's exactly what it is. So this is what they want to do, only we started with light. which is the tiniest particles they say that exist. This is just nothing more than light from a little pulsed red laser. So they want to use protons of heavy lead and so forth and create these huge splatters. When they say a collision, I'm going to show you a collision. When I say a collision, I'm showing a million zillion collisions per second. These are the collisions we're seeing. All right? I'll show you the collisions they're going to see, and they're going to get all the way up to 140 from the current 30. But that won't happen until 2029, something like that, before they can install these upgrades to focus and, get the particle beams more in tune with each other so that when they collide, more hits. But the problem is that when they come down with their particle, these particles have huge fields around them, like basketballs. The particle, tiny little thing in the center, they just bounce off each other. That's why they have 140 hits or 30 hits right now. And you know how many particles they started with? Take a guess in your own mind. They got 30 hits. How many particles were supposed to collide together? Billions. Billions, and they get 30 hits. We get virtually 100% of hits. They're all, and they're just creating the Higgs fields, which was that holy grail. I'll show you what they create, and they want to create is the Higgs fields. But we have them from laser light, not from gigantic collisions. I'll show you their collisions. You've seen ours. All right, I know I probably went over this about 5 times, and it doesn't matter. We started down here in these particles. So we never could get any bigger than these. These started way up here with each one of these is this size. When they hit, they're just chunks everywhere, and these can kill you. All right, and they found what he called the standard model, which is here. They claim this is the standard model and all these particles exist, which they do not. The only 2 particles that exist is this one, the black one and the white one, or the white one and the black one. I don't care how you do it. And these 2 together make a gluon. 2 gluons make a photon. That's it. When these things come apart, the white and the black, when they come back together, they created the Higgs fields. Shown it very, very clearly. All this other stuff is just different speeds and different spins and different names they put on things. They create a particle zoo. You don't need that. Here's I think I've shown you this. Hold on. Where is it? This is my model right here. And all of these are all that made of is the 2 particles, is this the negative particle and the positive particle. The negative particle can be the red, green, blue, basically. The blue is a tight. And when that takes off, it goes. It never comes back. The green is kind of held tight, and very rarely does it come back. The red is not held tightly, and it sort of just wavers around on the outside. And this is also, I will show you CERN's interpretation of that, because it's not too far off, but they're just using 2 bigger particles. This is all we use. We use this right there. This is what one of these is. It has a black and a white side to it, but it's magnetic. And it's tight. You can't hardly break those apart. That's what electricity is, by pulling them apart. And the white wants to get back so hard that it does electric stuff, which is pushed right through a person's body. All right? Electricity is really, 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 really wants to be back to the dark muons. And this is the differences in the standard model, and I point them out. But anyway, these are the 2 particles, the black and white. And these are the photons. Back-to-back gluons, which are, this will create heat. All right? If these are just floating around, and you get static on you and all that business, that is what you got, is these. All right, they want to be attached to something. So when you hit a water pipe or something like that, snap, they jump off of you because you're charged up. So they want to go to ground. Ground has a ton of dark matter versus the white matter. All right, white matter bounces around, bounces up and down. The black matter just can accumulate. It'll just sort of sink in, basically. Black doesn't care about being on top of each other. Couldn't care less. The white, get away. But in this configuration, it's stable. The next stable configuration is a hydrogen, a 1823. So there's some changes, and there's some changes in chemistry and so forth. The periodic table got to change a little bit, not much. Anyway, it's space, the redshift, all that stuff. The distances in space, the time, they could calculate 600 million years ago, this and that. Well, I dispute all that stuff because there is nothing that you can determine about the consistency of space. Now, I told you, this is their events. And they're getting 30 of these hits every time they turn that thing on. And like I said, I don't know what it costs to turn it on, but I can't imagine it's cheap. And here's what they're having happen. These particles are coming and hitting here. Everything goes flying. But they're actually having this. They think they're just, I don't know what they think anymore. But they're coming here, bam, and then these particles go everywhere. That's why you see all the goop everywhere. And now they search and search and search until they say, we found 10,000 of these tiniest particles are all exactly the same. So we're going to call those muons and electron neutrinos. Now, we didn't have to search through all that stuff. We just looked at the picture of the light. And here it was here. As it was accelerating, this is the stretch we're going to look at right here, is where the light changed into its neutrinos, and then into its photons, and then into the collision. So we didn't have to dig through all that debris. They have to dig through the debris, and I don't think they understand what they're seeing. I got to be honest with you. If all the stuff he was talking about, the TED Talk stuff, if that's still the mainstream consensus, I'm showing things that can't be disputed. This can't be disputed. And it's exactly what they're asking for. Muon neutrinos creating the muons, electron neutrinos creating electron showers. There's the black muons, a fixed particle, never changes size. I agree 100%. And there's the electron neutrino creating the showers. I agree 100%. That's fission. They broke apart. That's what it means. They came back together. That's fusion. All right, and they want to be reattached right here, and they're trying to dig in everywhere they can to get to that white. That's the whole idea of electricity. That's the strong sub-nuclear force. That's the strong quantum force. All right, I'm going to name that the strong quantum force. All right, Rogers' strong quantum force in action. Now, let me point out something else. The black ones don't care about being on top of each other. They couldn't care less. They just glob right together. All they care about is being attached to the white. And that's why the Russians experiment. I'm sure I got confused about this because I had a whole batch of interruptions, but I know I showed you this before. They create a black hole when you put the charged particles in there. All right, but you have to be in space. You have to be in a vacuum. Well, guess what? Earth is basically the same as this structure here because it's in a cloud of, not a vacuum, but it's in a cloud of debris like this. All the gases and everything, and the Earth is a black hole, and it sucks all the white particles down. That's what gravity is. That's basically very, very similar to the Earth. Of course, there's a lot of white particles in there too, I'm sure. But the crust of the whole Earth is coated with the white particles. Because everything you look at, it bounces back at you. The only thing that bounces back is the white ones. The black, nothing happens. Black it doesn't emit, absorb, or reflect. All right, remember I told you dipole electron flood theory, the center is the black, that's the really hard center core, and all the white particles surround it. All right, and when it explodes, then they break apart. If the ones that were attached to the black way down at the center, the closest ones are the blue, they take off and they never come back because they're so tightly held. When they have to be pulled so hard apart, they're gone. Now, the green pretty much does the same thing. The red does not have enough energy to just escape, basically. It sort of holds around there. And this is what we see in CERN's description of their Higgs, this is from Fermilab actually. Here's the same thing. There's their collision. All the blue and the white and the yellow and the green and the red, all of those take off and they don't come back. The red, it does not have enough energy because it's the way outside particle. So it bangs and boom, it does this. You can see it right there. There it is. All right, so you can see there's a ton of things here that I'm showing actual physical evidence of. The speed of light, it could be consistent, but I can tell you what, the energetic levels are much, much different from red to green to blue. Now let's finish up with what he has to say here at Alex here. All right, so let's come back just a hair. Well, now let's just keep going.
It's the interaction of the muon with those other particles that defines how fast it wobbles. In essence, the more different particles that bounce off the muon whilst it's wobbling, the faster it will wobble. And so then, this is what we want to measure. How fast muon...
That's the charge. How fast it's charging up. I mean, so how fast it's smashing into other things. Yes, I agree with that. And if they could, that's the wobble.
Wobble in a magnetic field due to their interaction with all the particles and forces in the universe.
Dell Technologies' smart infrastructure powered by Intel Xeon is staying ahead
Let's
of
give
changing
them their
workload
ad.
demands and anticipating security threats, empowering scientists with valuable data insights to help conserve coral reefs for years to come.
Now, so far, no new particle or force outside of the standard model that could explain those big mysteries about our universe has ever been discovered.
Incorrect, my friend. Alex, you got to pay attention, brother. I need to interact, my friend.
But the point to re-emphasize is that the rate or the speed by which muons wobble when we place them in a magnetic field is directly defined by all of the particles and forces in the universe that it comes into contact with. And so, if we can measure very precisely how fast they wobble, we can then compare that to the theoretical prediction of how fast they should wobble from just the particles and forces of the standard model. And then, if the measurement was found to be different and larger and disagree, then it would be an indication of new particles or forces outside of the standard model that could explain those big mysteries about our universe. And an experiment I work on has done just that. This is the muon G-2 experiment located at Fermilab on the outskirts of Chicago. Now this ring, which you can see here, is about 20 meters in diameter, and it's what's called a storage ring magnet. It's a ring in which we store muons inside a magnetic field which causes them to wobble. We then make our measurements of how fast they wobble and compare that to the theory. Now, this experiment released its first result in April of 2021, and the take-home message of this talk is that the result I'm presenting you here today from the muon G-2 experiment is the closest glimpse that we've had to seeing a new particle or force here in a laboratory on Earth. And this is that result here. So let me take some time to explain to you what this graph is showing. On the x-axis are the values for how fast muons wobble when we place them in a magnetic field. The green marker on the left is the theoretical prediction for how fast they wobble from just the particles of the standard model. And the green band defines the uncertainty on that prediction. The orange marker on the right is the new experimental measurement from the Fermilab muon G-2 experiment, and the orange band defines the uncertainty on that measurement. And by uncertainty, I mean we're statistically certain that both the prediction and the measurement, the value for each, should be inside their respective bands. And what you can see is not only do those bands not overlap, but they differ by quite a large amount, that white gap in the middle, indicating a clear disagreement between the two values. What this means is that when muons are placed in a magnetic field, they wobble faster than what the theory predicts. So all the known particles and forces of the standard model have failed to predict how fast muons have wobbled. And what does this suggest? Well, it suggests that there are new particles or forces that aren't part of that globally accepted theory interacting with the muon and causing them to wobble faster. Now, a reason why physicists are so excited about this result is that the chance that this result is a fluke statistically is 1 in 40,000. So that's the same as saying that there's a 99.9975% chance that we've seen the influence of a new particle or force here in a laboratory on Earth.
All right, let me just explain that they just did not interpret the particles that we have seen correctly because of the way they're trying to do this experimentation is with too much particles. They just get too much of a splash and they never see what I show. I'm pretty sure they don't understand that the muon is attached to the electron neutrino. This was what you would call a muon wobble. And of course, again, this is through the Venturi. They're accelerated. And the red glow here means that there's too many fields against each other's fields. So you get a very heavy glow. And it gets really, really glowing when you crush them, as I showed you before. Now, as they get separated away from other fields, you get a darkness in there because there's no interaction between the fields. Well, there's not as much interaction. There's going to be interaction, and you would never see any of this stuff, except for because it's gone through the Venturi, and that's what creates these energetic particles. All right, so one more time, they're talking about the muon wobble. That's the black particle. And yes, I agree, the muon has all the weight. I think they didn't realize it's attached to the white particle because it has no weight. It has no weight. The muon has just all the weight. So I don't know if they realize that the photon part, the electron neutrino is attached. That's all I can think. They don't realize it's attached. And they say the muon wobbles all by itself. No, the muon won't wobble. The muon is like a straight line beam. If it's all by itself, it's just going to go wherever it goes. But it's going to immediately find another white particle. So I believe what they're seeing is the flipping particles, which either are electrons by themselves, which I doubt. I think they're seeing the photons flipping and calling them muons. But they are muons, but they're attached to the electron neutrinos, which gives it all the energy. And that's what makes it flip. They charge up, they flip. They charge up, they flip. And the more intense what they have to push through, the faster they flip. I think that's exactly what he said. All right, so here's his declaration about the huge gap. It's nothing like they thought. So he says, so all the known particles and forces of the standard model, and here he goes. Alex, take two.
Have failed to predict how fast muons have wobbled. And what does this suggest? Well, it suggests that there are new particles or forces that aren't part of that globally accepted theory interacting with the muon and causing them to wobble faster. Now, a reason why physicists are so excited about this result is that the chance that this result is a fluke statistically is 1 in 40,000. So that's the same as saying that there's a 99.9975% chance that we've seen the influence of a new particle or force here in a laboratory on Earth. But a word of caution. Physicists actually set a much stricter threshold by which they can claim a discovery, and that is that the chance the result is a fluke cannot be more than 1 in 3.5 million. And so we haven't reached that discovery threshold yet, and so we can't definitively say that we've seen the influence of a new particle or force. And the reality is that to reach that 1 in 3.5 million threshold, there's a lot of work to be done. But that work is being done right now and will continue to be done over the coming years. So what does this all mean? Well, first, any result from the muon G1s2 experiment, even the result that said there were no new particles or forces, would be a good result. That is science, right? Sometimes it's not discovering new things, sometimes it's just confirming old things. And even if that were the case, the byproducts of particle physics experiments have been advancing human civilization for much of the past 100 years. Modern electronics, the internet, satellite navigation, these are all byproducts of particle physics experiments or endeavors. And there's no telling what experiments like the muon G1s2 experiment could do for us in the future. But if that were the case and we found no new particle or force, then we wouldn't be able to explain those big mysteries about our universe. What is dark energy? What is dark matter? And where did all the antimatter go? Whatever the outcome, the muon G1s2 experiment will keep releasing results in the next few years that will continue to test our understanding of the fabric of reality. I, for one, am really excited about it, and I really hope you stay tuned with us to find out if we've definitively discovered a new particle or force for the first time. Thank you.
And thank you, my friend. And I would love to interact with my evidence. So I am obviously going to be putting this on my channel, and I hope you'll respond. And anybody that subscribes to me, please reach out to Fermilab and all of the others, Lawrence Livermore and so forth, that are working in this range, because that's exactly what I have shown. And I think I've shown it quite convincingly. So at least it deserves the mention. I mean, these are the particles Fermilab found, the black with the glowy edge. I mean, that's it. You can't get any exacter than that. That is exactest you're ever going to get. It's what you would call exactification. Now, I don't care if it's 1 in 10 billion. This can be done over and over and over. Now, whether they can measure it, I don't know. But I don't care, because I can see those particles visually disintegrate in front of my very eyes, as you can too. Accelerate and then disintegrate. Accelerate, accelerate. Disintegrate. So, and I think we could harvest that white energy. So is that something that we could do for mankind? Well, maybe. But I didn't see anything there that turned me on, I can tell you that right now. Now, Fermilab, would be well advised to be looking at this. And, we do pay their tabs. And I think it's time that we had a little more interaction on things like this. The average person is not excluded from making discoveries. I'm not excluded from making discoveries, am I? If I did, well, we should look at them. So anyway, that's what I'm seeing today here. And again, TED Talks, I appreciate that. All right, thank you. Okay, my friends, I rarely go deep into my background, but let me just explain to you where I come from and why I feel confident to talk about these things. I originally worked for General Electric rebuilding gigantic motors that powered huge factories, the motor generators. And we rebuilt them and reserviced them, and they put them back in operation. They had to come in flatbed trucks, they were so big. Then after that, when I was in the Army in 1968. I went in right when the Tet Offensive started, and they fortunately put me in nuclear missile sites. I was up in Alaska servicing the nuclear sites, doing the power generation and all that kind of stuff, taking care of the equipment, and not actually doing the nuclear stuff. However, I took an interest in that, because I worked with all the radar clamshells and all that kind of stuff. So it was kind of interesting. So anyway, I got out and I went into to college, and I took physics and, I mean, every kind of type of science you could take. Now, this was when I finally did my final paper on how dipole moments work and the configuration of the nucleuses and how molecules interact and how they're literally glued together. This is a big topic right now, is quantum gravity. And what does quantum gravity even mean? It means, why does stuff stick together? Why does it even stick together? Why doesn't it just fall apart? Why is it held together? Is there glue in there? What holds the atoms together? Not necessarily the big chunks of clay and so forth. Yeah, they stick together because they're chunks of clay. But what is the clay made of that it sticks together? Which is quantum gravity. And I'll show you quantum gravity, but this was my paper of quantum gravity in 1971 or 2. And this, what I was doing was 3 different types of polar bonding molecules, and where their centers of positive and negative dipole moments were. You actually had to draw them out and figure it out where the layers of electrons were. Now, this was all based on the theories that they had back then. And I came really close to almost a fist fight with my professor about this, because I said there's no such thing as these big, huge particles they call protons, which are just one big plus and tiny little negatives. It doesn't work that way. It can't. And I did the whole thing. I went right through the whole 9 yards. Every little bit in detail in their determination how these things work into angstrom units. And I came out to the conclusion that everything is Coulombic. All right, the bonding forces between atoms to form molecules are also electrostatic in nature. They're electrostatic. That's the bonding part to hold them together. It means they are Coulombic forces. All right? I had to put sort of, I could have just said they're dipoles, but I tried to make it so Coulombic just means they're dipoles. So I said considerations must be made in regards to the repulsive force between nuclei, repulsive force between electrons, attractive force between the nucleus, and yada yada yada. And it comes down to how the atoms bond together and how the nucleuses are actually held together, and all matter is made of dipoles. All right, and this I added recently, within the last 10 years or so, because I could see them. About 10 years ago, I could see the electron-muon part, which are the dipoles, which are made from light. So now I could really see, and now I had completely fulfilled my theory, which was that there was no such thing as big. Here's what they have. All right. You go to a physics teacher and he'll say you got protons and you got neutrons. A proton has a bit of a charge to it, and a neutron is just one little charge higher, and it has no charge to it. It has one little extra particle, which makes it neutral. Well, I say this is 1,823 dipoles, which makes it want one more or give one up, because it's uneven. That's what I say a proton is, 1,823, I believe, if the weight of an electron is correct, which is supposed to be 0.000585-ish atomic mass units, and you multiply that times 1,823, and that's what you would have in a proton. 1,824 would be a neutron. It doesn't want to give one up or take one on. It's just got even numbers are basically neutral. So this would have a charge, and it would either want to give one up to come to neutral or take one more on to come to neutral. That's what molecules are all about, is having unstable amounts of electrons so they glue together. All right, that's what protons, that's what everything is gluing together, because they're dipoles. This, my friends, is not a proton. This is a proton. And this is made of 1,823 dipoles. A dipole is a magnet. That's all a magnet is a dipole. It has a positive and a negative, and they glue together. And 1,823 of them actually are the same as a proton. Now, we worked with light, so we only worked with this right there. That's what we worked with. Two of these little particles make light. And light is a stable particle. It is a particle. I'll show you it's a particle. No question about that. And 1,823 of them is the next stable zone. When they talk about radioactivity, they're talking about broken nucleuses. All right, that's stable. That won't hurt you. It's light. Bing, bong, bing, bong, bing, bong, all day long. It hits stuff and bounces back at you. It's not going to hurt you. These are protons. These are huge, and they will hurt you. And when they break apart in a nuclear explosion, you get pieces like this. And they don't want to be like that. They want to be full formed, so they become radioactive. So all of a sudden they'll go pew, and slam into something and explode it to try to become a complete particle again. And that could be your DNA. And that's what happens. You inhale these little particles because they're smaller than atoms. These are smaller than a proton. These are broken protons. That's what radioactivity is, a broken proton. You can inhale this very easily. It gets into your system and it'll float around through your system, and all of a sudden it'll find something that turns it on to say, ooh, we can combine with that, we're going to be good. Pow! Next thing you know, whatever it combined with is now no longer working the way it's supposed to. And that is going to be one of your enzymes, one of your DNA molecules, whatever. So that's how people end up getting invasion, because these things are so big. Now, we didn't work with that. We're working with light, so we're not going to cause any invasion to your lungs or anything like that. But at CERN and all that, they have very, very strict controls of these terrible radioactive particles they're making by hitting these things head on. They're smashing these things head on, and then they're looking through all the debris, and they're seeing stuff, gigantic particles like this, and then they're trying to find the tiniest ones. We started with the tiniest ones, so we don't have to worry about killing ourselves with radioactivity. But this was my paper. Like I said, it was a long, long time ago. I spent my whole life working in electronics, and not only did I do the physics, I did all the chemistry. These are all different chemical reactions, and because once you understand the nature, this is the chemistry, I did thermochemistry, I did all that stuff, all the different energy and wavelengths and X-rays, and I mean, you name it. That was my life, so I don't feel uncomfortable about talking about this. And I did end up going to University of Geneva for particle physics, and I explained to them everything we did, and they didn't disagree. Only they work with these big, gigantic particles, but all they're trying to find is the tiniest bits and pieces that are in here, and we found them because we started with the tiniest bits and pieces, which is light. If you look up light, it says it's an elementary particle, it doesn't have any mass. They got it all wrong. I mean, everything is wrong right now. I'm sorry, that's just a fact. So that's why I want to confront TED Talk. Now, remember I said everything breaks down to Coulombic forces? Here it is right there. Attraction or repulsion of particles. That's all it is. It's electric charges. And they say that both the positive or the negative will repel each other. No, absolutely incorrect. The negatives, they hate each other. That's electricity. The negatives are the glowy, bright part. And the black part is the positive, and it couldn't care less. All it wants is the white ones to come to it. The black ones can all turn into one big glob. Couldn't care less about pushing the black ones away. The white one's totally different. The white pushes the white away and causes showers. The black just goes into a sterile mode and can hang around on top of each other. It doesn't matter. That's what a black hole is. All that black particles gang up together, and because they don't care about being on top of each other. The white one's totally different story.